Perfect. So, hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. So, this is the very first edition of the Copa Talks that we're hosting. Joining us today is Steve Rosvold. Steve Rosvold is the founder of CFO University. And joining Steve and I is Raghav, who's the co-founder of Bluecopa. A quick introduction about Steve.
Right.
Steve is, as the founder of CFO University, has worked across multiple organizations in his probably 3-4 decade long career. He's worked across Cargill and other massive enterprises, leading financial roles, taking up teams, building profitable businesses. And about 3 years, 3 decades later, Steve decided it's a really good time to give back to the community. So he started CFO University, which is where now he's building a community of finance leaders, scholars, and folks. He's driving a lot of educational activities to all the folks out there and making them worthwhile finance leaders. So I think that's a very massive feat that you've taken upon yourself, Steve, and also welcome to the show.
Thank you, Guru, for that very kind introduction.
Yes, thank you. And Raghva is again no introductions. Raghva is the co-founder of Bluecopa. Prior to Bluecopa, Raghva's worked on multiple financial leadership stints across Wipro and Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Raghva had a previous startup which was acquired by the Open Financial Technologies, which was called Optotax. And post that, Raghva also decided to give back to the finance ecosystem, but through a different angle now. He started building a product that helps finance operations run smoothly, which is where the idea of Bluecopa started. So welcome, Raghava.
Thank you, Guru, and thanks, Steve, for joining the session.
I'm
Amazing,
looking forward to
great.
our
So
discussion for sure.
yes,
Awesome.
I can't wait for us to get started. Let me just quickly set up the context, folks. So the topic of discussion today is connected finance in the era of AI. Right? You might wonder what connected finance is all about. It might look like a very technical jargon. So here's Raghav, who's going to demystify what the term is and what we're going to discuss next.
Sure, Guru. Thanks for it. Firstly, I'm assuming my voice is clear. Is that fine? Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so connected finance, like you rightly said, might look like a jargon, but it's nothing new. I would say if you look at the evolution of ERP per se, the reason why ERPs initially started is to bring data with marketing module, sales module, HR module, finance module, right? Including the accounting module, supply chain modules, and things like that. But what has happened over the last 1 decade is that niche solutions have come up in each of these functions. For example, within marketing, you have the likes of, say, HubSpot, which came up, right? You have Google Ads, which came up with Google Analytics included. Similarly, in HRMS space, very HR centric solutions have come up, which means point solutions have come up over the last 1 decade, which again decentralized the whole ERP bundle, or disintegrated the whole ERP bundle. The challenge with that is that data is in silos. The systems don't talk to each other. There's a lot of mess that happens when data is scattered around. Now that's being solved via the connected finance approach. So or what has been happening initially with ERPs is again happening via the current latest platforms. For example, Bluecopa is also one of the connected finance solutions out there, right? So in simple terms, a platform like us, what we do is that we connect with all the data sources that you can think of, be it ERP, CRMs, marketing tools, right? Those standalone tools still exist. Think of us like a layer on top of all those tools. We collate the data insights by identifying common patterns, common data points across these different tools. Like the illustration that you see here, multiple data sources are got into one single platform. Here information across different data sources, processes it, and then gives you eventual outcomes which would really impact day-to-day finance operations, which is giving you observability from a finance team standpoint, giving you all the KPIs that you'll need, giving you the planning related stuff that you'll need, right? Giving you the collaborative stuff you'll need, reconciliation stuff you'll need, and things like that. So from the erstwhile promise of ERP, which is connected finance, it started becoming disconnected, and then with platforms like us, it's again getting connected. So it's no different, just that the terminology has come back again, given there has been a lot of decentralization from finance standpoint in the last 1 decade. In fact, I've been having conversations with Steve, some time back on connected finance. He's somebody who actually practices it. Maybe Steve, if you can give a couple of examples from what you have been doing on connected finance side, it'll make things more clearer for the audience, maybe.
Thanks, Raghava. Yeah, I'd be happy to. One of the things that I should let people know, well, we'll start off with an example. So you think about CFOs and finance people, we are so, locked into our different processes. And that might be order to cash, P2P, close to disclose, store to ship. All of our processes, they're built in, but they're all built around the finance function. And we're very comfortable in that space. And I think what connected finance does a bit is it takes our, it takes these silos that we've built around the sales pipeline. So sales and marketing is working on lead generation, prospecting, qualification, contacting potential customers, making proposals and closing deals. And then we have, customer service takes over from there if there's issues or concerns or questions, and they kind of follow their process. And when we're ready to ship products, our logistics, groups, handle all that activity. And then, when we collect the cash, there's a whole process there. And these different silos create data gaps, and they create misunderstanding. Whereas how I look at connected finance in this example, so take the order to cash process, we're putting all these different activities, these silos, turning them on their side and making sure that finance is connected to them. So the example, understanding how the sales pipeline works. So broadening our thought process and our data collection and our activities around the sales pipeline is important. Not just that we received an order, we filled it, we shipped it, created an invoice. The whole, our old order to cash process needs to be expanded. And that includes not just the sales pipeline, customer service, shipping. It could include operations, which I didn't include on here for manufacturing a product. But if you think about where what we're familiar with and all these processes that we're really good at, we've really mechanized, we're getting good at, this broadens that whole thing. And so that's one example of how connected finance, kind of creates value for the company. And it's finance looking past the finance department and collaborating with these other departments. And I think that's such a valuable part of the whole collaboration that occurs, makes a lot more transparency, and it certainly helps our friends in the other departments get better as well. So that's one of the exciting areas, and there are many others that we'll talk about today, Raghava. But if you look at every process in finance, and you then make sure you're connecting with where that process starts. Like, we receive an order because the sales department worked hard. We're able to ship a product because the operations department built it. We're able to get it to a customer because logistics is doing a great job. And understanding that within the terms of finance is super important. So I think we have all the attributes and to collect all this information. We're really strong at that. And I think this is, connected finance is a great opportunity to kind of expand finance's horizon and create a lot of value for businesses.
No, absolutely. Totally aligned with what you said, Steve. In fact, the O2C example that you have taken is one of the common use cases that we see when we talk to finance leaders, right? Because that's the initial burning problem that CFOs face. Once you solve that is when they will get into predictions and things like that on the planning front. But O2C is the core, problem that we see CFOs want to initially address. Having said that, a couple of questions that usually come up in our discussions with finance leaders who would want to evaluate implementing, say, connected finance solution is this, right? The last 1 decade, most of the finance teams are used to working on disconnected tools, right? Say, within finance function itself, you have an invoicing solution, you have multiple payment gateways, you have again an ERP which is accounting centric, right? You have probably an inventory solution which is different. Now all of that getting aggregated into one single tool is definitely far more powerful. but it also is a learning curve from finance team standpoint, right? That's one trend that's happening. Parallelly, businesses are getting disrupted, right? More and more companies are becoming data centric, which means the pace at which finance teams need to evolve is also going to be in a far more rapid pace. So I just wanted to gather your thoughts around how do you think the connected finance is going to disrupt in data centric business models that are evolving as we speak?
Yeah, that's becoming a real topic of interest to CFOs and finance leaders in general. And you mentioned the example. You have an ERP that's disconnected from the CRM. Well, you looked at what connected finance means is we have to find a way to connect that. We have to bring that sales pipeline into our world of data and share it back to have much more robust information. So certainly we're seeing a lot of connectivity starting with between and we call it an ERP. Well, it might be QuickBooks or Xero. It doesn't have to be a fancy big ERP. And we call a CRM. It doesn't have to be Salesforce or HubSpot. It can be an Excel spreadsheet, right? So this isn't just for the big companies. Their smaller companies need to kind of get to the same space too. So you think about having this single source of truth that is really important, and that comes with this connectivity. And again, it's easy to use the ERP and the CRM as examples, but there's other logistical software, there's operating software that on how we're doing in the plants that also become just as important and collect just as rich of data for us to mine. And once we have that in a place where we can start looking at it, this whole data-driven decision making, data analytics that you're talking about, becomes a rich place for us to mine for insights and better decision making. So I think we're seeing that a lot more, that these disparate systems, and it isn't that there's a one system fits all. There's a middleware that has to happen that helps us connect these different systems. And that's the place where there's a lot of exploration, and you, as an example of Bluecopa, kind of serving that market to help us connect these different systems, give us one source of truth, and create all that rich data. And there's certainly tremendous interest in it, and cracking that code is going to be a lot of fun for CFOs and the vendors who provide the services there, and create a lot of value for businesses.
Absolutely. In fact, there is an interesting statistic here, Steve. Even the mid-market companies on an average have about 30 different tools used in their organizations, right? 30 different tools for a mid-market company is too much, right? Enterprise, anyway, you can understand, extrapolate, and figure out how many tools they use. Imagine the challenge in managing these tools, because they have completely disconnected data points. Somebody sitting on those
Well, I think I'll
data
add,
points which don't is definitely a nightmare.
having a little bit of connectivity issues, I think, with Raghava. But
yeah,
what
looks like a slight lag there. Yeah.
Well, so while he's catching up and while his internet's getting better, the things that we're, I'm seeing is a lot of activity in kind of, it starts with data. So what companies are saying, what data needs do we have? And from there, moving from their data needs to which systems capture that. And that's where the connectivity comes in. So once they have established what's the most important data that we need, and that's normally coming from a current system. Sometimes they don't have the system to capture it, but it's normally, and the most important data to capture initially is transactional data. So that's right. Finance wheelhouse. But then as you expand further and you start looking at a sales pipeline, or you start looking at the marketing aspects of things, or human resources, you can get more rich data and create more. But initially, and we all have that, mostly from our ERPs, is a very rich data set. And then we can expand that as we grow. And so I think the first thing is the foundation of all this is understanding what data you need to make the best decisions for your company. And that's an important aspect. And then starting to connect the dots, which is of these different systems that we have, is the next big step.
So when you mentioned that data seems to be the most integral part of this whole connected finance ecosystem, right? Just help me understand once you have the data fed into a system, and you have it right and ready for you to draw insights, what would the next set of actions look like, right? From a connected finance perspective, right now that we have a data that is already fed into the system, we've been collecting it properly. There is proper consolidation, reconciliation happening, and now uh, you are filled with insights. So what would your next course of action would be in terms of connected finance? Because breaking silos is also something that I seem to understand is a part of the connected finance ecosystem, right? So how would you describe that journey?
Well, that's where the data analytics come in. So let's assume you've made a couple big assumptions. One is that we have the right data, which is a big struggle in some cases where we look at we get the information, the easy information we have, and that becomes our data set. And that's really
Yeah.
not what's our most important data. So let's say we've captured that, we put it in a system. Now we can run some analytics on it. So this is where data
Yeah.
analytics and those systems come in. And once we get that information, now that's where finance can share and be transparent and ask questions to whether it's the operations or logistics or the marketing and sales people, where those dialogues can start. Is this, we've found something here. Is this important? And that's the excitement about data analytics is it's finding, all those gold nuggets in that information that we can't analyze through our normal, really just financial statement analysis. What I call our analysis of even our O2C process, analyzing that only gives us a limited amount of insight. So we take all this other information, the other information from other aspects, we can grow so much richer data and insights from that. And that's where the connectivity, these silos you're talking about, Guru, get broken down. And sharing that information creates a dialogue where finance is really bringing value to these other departments. That makes them, it's kind of circular, and it just grows. It's a flywheel. They see us bringing value. They want more of that value. And that's where, and as long as we can get that data consolidated, that's really an important aspect. And finance is so good at that anyway. We've done it for years and years on the financial statements. Now we're just
Yeah.
broadening data out. Raghava, welcome.
Absolutely. No. Thank you. And I've been following what you've been saying. Completely agree with you, right? It's the intersection of financial data, operational data, and market data, right? Only when you bring all these three together is when you can uncover the insights. Purely financial data we have been doing for quite some time now, which is financial statements, right? I think world has moved beyond that, which is where the points that you currently highlighted makes a lot of sense, Steve. Again, just to follow up on this, correct? Connected finance obviously can impact both the top line, bottom line, right? In optimizing a lot of things. Uh, Again, most of the good finance leaders that I've seen who take a staged approach, right? Which is they would not say, let's disrupt the whole day-to-day activities. Let's pick up one or two, burning problems. Some company might want to focus on scale. Some companies might want to improve their cash flow, right? Some companies might want to improve their bottom line purely from a net income standpoint. So from your experience, where is the current focus predominantly being?
I think that and PwC did a study on this, and they said, they kind of divided, finance leaders into four categories. One was the efficiency person, and that's a person trying to save costs, quicken up time, and that there's a lot of those. But they called the moderated person, the person who's taking the next step. So not just getting efficiencies, but also looking at potential value streams. So going a step further than just cutting costs or improving time, and that's the predominant. So most CFOs are in that role of how can I use data one step ahead of just creating efficiencies and reducing time. So how do we create new revenue streams? Very exciting. The third area they talked about was now how are we going to use this to disrupt our company? And that would be significant changes to the business model. And the last area, and there's not very many of these, but it's actually disrupting industries. So they're saying we're going to turn this upside down. But most of the CFOs and finance leaders today fit into this area. They understand that data is of value, and they're working through how do we improve not just efficiencies, not just reduce labor or get things done quicker, but how do then we create more value, better decision making from that data? And that's where we're at today. And that is where connected finance becomes so important, because you're really limited. If we're just looking at the financial statements and doing analysis, it's hard to do deep analytics without bringing other factors. And that's where I think connected finance really puts us in the right mindset to develop those value creation opportunities that are outside of just efficiencies.
Super, very, very interesting perspective that way. Still, I would just want to add one more, dimension to what you said, which is, from our experience of talking to, a lot of finance leaders, right? What we've seen is that growth stage companies, when I say growth stage companies that are looking to grow anywhere between, say, 12 to 15%, typically use connected finance predominantly on the sales growth side, which is bringing the CRM, ERP, invoicing, payments, all of that together. Mature companies we've seen more on the operations front to improve their net income, right? Which means more on the cost efficiency side. Heavy investment industries like, say, manufacturing, supply chain have been focusing more on the O2C side, the example that you initially took, right? Again, these are some of the trends that we keep observing from our discussions with a lot of finance leaders. Good to hear your perspective as well there. Again, you talk to a lot of finance leaders, almost on a weekly basis. Just wanted to understand, there is also an angle of AI which has come into connected finance, right? Which would uncover a lot of insights which people could never think of initially, given there's a lot of, like I said, financial, non-financial, market intelligence, all of that put together to uncover insights. What have you been hearing about AI in connected finance?
Yeah, I think AI, there's a whole bunch of opportunities, right? We're all exploring it, but I think one of the key areas is on forecasting. And I would encourage people to use AI and use data analytics for their forecasting. And the reason why AI becomes important is that iterative process where it learns. So just take your accounts on your balance sheet, your income statement, and run it. If you have 36 or 48 months of activity, start doing a forecast based on a regression model like that. Where the AI can help is then start learning where things are closely aligned. So you can find out either what accounts or what group of accounts are closely aligned to trends, and then you can start exploring what anomalies are occurring. So that's the forecast, which I think is becoming so important for so many businesses, because it makes you think when you go back and say, why did we miss that? There's so much learning potential there. And I think using as much analytics and as much AI in that as you can afford is valuable for the iterative process of understanding and creating understanding and better decisions. So I think that's one area. I think there's another area, the risk side. So you see on the audits and things, AI is becoming just a big part of that. And people can do a lot of the auditing on their own now. It used to be that you take sample sizes because it was so expensive to do all that. Well, that's going away now. You can audit every entry pretty easily now via some kind of AI or automation tool. So I think managing risk is an important area for that as well. And then I think when you're example board packs, what we're seeing is the generative capabilities of AI are allowing us to create very systematic ways that we communicate with our boards. Now, that doesn't mean that we can just run it through an AI, run our financials through an AI system and give that to the board, but it sets up all kinds of where we can analyze what's being said. So rather than doing all that preparation and then kind of the analysis, checking the numbers, we can look at the results and make the story from there. And that saves so much time and energy, that the thought process and our ability to have really rich discussions with the board go up tremendously when we can spend 90% of our time thinking about that, rather than 80% of our time preparing the numbers, putting a slide deck together and all that, where all of a sudden you kind of lost the whole train of thought of what we're trying to get to, more worried about that the numbers balance. And when we find that, there's a huge opportunity in generative AI there. So, there's a few areas, and I'm sure I'm missing a ton of others, but I think it's really an exciting area for finance to link AI, with our processes and with our deliverables.
Awesome. I just want to add two more, use cases that we see in addition to what you mentioned, Steve. One is personalized insights to the folks within the organization, right? Within finance function, for example, the AR team might want to look at data in a different way compared to what, say, an FP&A guy would want to look at it, compared to what a CFO would want to look at it. Creating those customized, views and metrics is one use case that we have seen within, the connected finance using AI. The second use case that we have seen again in growth stage companies is that finding out the quality of revenue is supremely important, right? Because you cannot have sales going up at the same time customer not paying you on time, which means you have bad quality customers, or your inventory levels going up significantly beyond your sales growth, which is again not a right approach because it might eventually eat up your bottom line, right? So purely sales growth is not the thing, right? Identifying quality revenue is the thing, right? So I've seen a couple of companies within our portfolio manage very well using connected finance and AI on top of that. Glad you brought up some use cases around predictions and risk management using AI. Right.
One of the things that
From an
yep, you
yeah,
just mentioned that I just wanted to point out because it's really important. You talked about the customer and good, you didn't call it good revenue, but quality revenue. And one of the things connected finance is it is customer centric, and being able to segment customers from a pricing standpoint, from do we want to do business with them, takes deep data and deep analysis and deep understanding of the customer. So, and that's a relationship driven thing. So even though we're using technology in this, and whether it's AI or whether it's some other type of tools, there's still a relationship piece that is really important. And one of the central tenets of connected finance is customer centricity. And so I think you hit it on the head. Really understanding our customers, and quality revenue is a term you use that I think is a great term. But that's really an important aspect of connected finance.
great. Uh, we should probably touch upon how do companies think about implementing a connected finance solution in the first place, right? Again, I'll probably highlight a couple of things that people do really well. From our experience, would like you to add to that, right, from your experience as well. So what we've seen is that there could be 10, 20 different use cases that can be solved using connected finance, but typically good finance leaders pick up one, at the max two use cases, right? Just solve those two use cases really well, build the trust in the organization, ensure the whole process runs really well for those two use cases, and then think about larger finance transformation. That's one thing that we have seen. The second is the stage dependent connected finance that I was talking to you about, right? Which is growth stage companies just picking up sales related connected finance activities versus mature companies picking up operational efficiency related connected finance activities. So based on stage, companies have been picking up. The third that I would say is industry specific activities, right? If you are operations heavy company, what we've seen is that supply chain side, a lot of finance leaders want to invest in connected finance solutions. Right. Just wanted to understand if there are any other variations from your discussions with CFOs or from whatever you have implemented with your current customers, Steve.
You know what I think, Raghavan, I think your point of starting small with some things that are achievable, really important. I've heard that time and time again, and that's the successful way. If you try to eat the whole elephant at once, it's pretty hard to swallow. So that's great advice. What I'm finding is there's so many competing interests, not interests, but competing projects and things. They have to make it a priority. So understanding, number one, what connected finance can do. So you think about customer centricity, data centric, broad visibility without the company, collaboration, and you see all those broad things. We're working on a lot of that now. So really connected finance is pulling all that together. So creating a budget, some kind of awareness within the executive team that this is an avenue. It's kind of it's an important avenue for growth for most businesses. and being able to articulate what connected finance means to the board and to the executive team, because there can be a budget issue, right? You want to, we can spend our money in a lot of different ways, but one of the ways is how do we become, more data centric, more customer centric, and more connected as a group, and that's really what connected finance is about. So making room for the educational piece where the team understands what you're trying to deliver under connected finance, because there's so many valuable parts of it. But unless you're beating the drum on it, it can fall on deaf ears. So there's a bit of a budget thing, and the other part of that, and it's related to budget too, is the people side. You have to have people that are capable of taking this on, and sometimes that's another piece of the puzzle that's hard to get. Hard to either get budget for or actually hard to hire for, especially in today's market in the US where, it's really tight. And so those are the two things, budget and people.
Absolutely. Given the time that we have, I want us to touch upon two more topics, Steve. One is how do you, because connected finance is anyway disrupting a lot of day-to-day activities that finance teams do. So how do we, ensure the team is up there to take the advantage of, solutions around connected finance is one. Second, also wanted to touch upon, what are some of the pitfalls that companies get into, which would not make them, or which would not keep them in a position where they can take 100% advantage of the solutions out there, right? I'll first want to hear your thoughts, right? Firstly, around people, right? How do you think team should look to upskill, probably for the lack of better word, right, to ensure the tech stack that's available there today, people take advantage of it? What are some of the mindset changes that people would need, particularly in the finance function?
Yeah, I think the big part is having a plan. So your plan covers here's our plan, and our plan is going to accomplish X. We're going to become data centric. We're going to become business focused rather than just finance focused. And finance people love to hear that, right? They love to hear that they're going to be more involved in sales, and so making sure that you're bringing your group along is really important, because it's hard to do this alone. In fact, it's impossible to do this alone. So you have to making sure that you make it newsworthy, and you make sure the finance team is connected to the vision. And it really starts with that, because if you start losing people because they're worried about their jobs being replaced and things like that, you're gonna find a hard time getting this done. So I think it's really important to bring the finance team along as you're kind of growing the whole concept around connected finance, and bring them along with the plan. That's really important, because if you lose them, you're going to lose all the momentum. And this is if you think about where finance is going on this, you think we're getting closer to the customer. We're getting closer to our teammates. We're using data more effectively. We're being tech enabled. So, I mean, there are all these attractive pieces that very few finance people and accounting people would not be excited to get involved in. So I think, making sure that you're on your soapbox talking about the benefits of this, not just to the executive team, but to your team, and get them behind you, I think is really, really important. So I think that's kind of number one.
No, that I totally agree with you. In fact, what we have seen is that a lot of good CFOs ensure they take the team along, right? Just tell them where the world is moving, what kind of skill set would matter, say 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. Is the thing that's needed, just to ensure the team is motivated enough. The other point that I would like to add, the losing jobs point that you mentioned, right? The way we think about it is that finance teams are business partners in any organization, correct? This is actually empowering them to become more, business centric rather than, operational centric or data centric, which should ideally be solved by a solution, and then insight should be implemented in organization to ensure outcomes are delivered, which is where business partnering comes handy. That's where the true value of finance teams can be uncovered. So we also feel very strongly that it's only going to empower finance teams. It's not going to cut down any of the, be it in terms of the cost, or be it in terms of number of people, right? It's just empowering finance teams to become true business partners. The second
Yeah.
I wanted to touch, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to say that, yeah, the ROI on this isn't coming from reduced people. That's
Correct.
not, and we never hear that talked about, but you think about it's not because you're going to save a bunch of staff on it for connected finance. It's that you're going to create much better insights, quicker decision making, and your people are going to be spending much higher value work. So I think that was the point on that whole thing, that it's not a cost reduction exercise, it's a value creation
Correct.
exercise.
Absolutely. I think you summarized it beautifully. One last point that I want to touch upon, again, from your experience of having seen a lot of tools in CFO tech stack, right? You have in fact seen the evolution of CFO tech stack from nowhere to where it's currently. Just wanted to understand some of the general pitfalls that companies have gone through, that some of the emerging CFOs who would look at the current session should be very careful about.
Yeah. I think, well, for my old days, it'd be anything that takes over a year, an ERP, for example, to select and implement. Don't do that. It's probably more like 3 months if you can't make a decision. But I think it has to do with what are the returns on the different activities. So if you're a big production company, if you're a products or manufacturer, making sure that you're investing in good production tools, so you can get that analysis. If you're sales driven, or if you have a SaaS based model, then it kind of is driven by your activities. So then the SaaS models and SaaS tools are going to be really important. If you're a distributor, logistics becomes super important. So it really depends what business you're in. But from a CFO's perspective, that's where I think we have to get out of the concept of, we're responsible for the general ledger. So the ERP becomes our kind of main focus, and be much broader in the technical parts about where we want to get involved in. And so that isn't necessarily new systems. There's legacy systems. I'll tell you a quick story. Back in the day when I was the CFO of a division of Cargill called the energy division, we went and bought, and this is a long time ago, so we're using AS400 IBM. It's an old technology, but it was maybe in 1999 or something. We bought this system for $1 million from another company. And we got laughed at, me and the CIOs. They said, "What are you doing buying this old technology?" It was pre-green, we had green screen started that we had to put GUI interfaces on, but it was $1 million. Everything else we looked at was going to cost us $5 million and was untested. 15 years later, I'm talking to somebody from this company, and they're still using that technology. So I would say legacy systems aren't necessarily bad. You just have to know what kind of data you can get out of them. But so the one recommendation is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But if you can find interconnect some devices or tools, Bluecopa, for example, that can connect these different systems, that's a great place to start rather than just starting from scratch. So, and trying to throw out everything you have. So that's one recommendation, is that, make sure you have good inventory of what you have, where the gaps are in that, and then, are you going to be able to connect those pieces to get this, this idea of one source of truth from those systems. And then if you don't have it, if you have some big gaps, then there's an investment to make in the tech stack, right? If you find that we don't have a CRM that works for us, we're going to need that, or we don't have a tool in logistics that works, you buy that. But I would take inventory of what you have, and rather than have a big IT spend, look at the connectivity potential of what you have and see if there isn't a better tool that can assimilate that rather than trying to start all over with a bunch of systems.
No, that's very interesting story that you said as well, Steve. A couple of probably additions that I would do to that is, think always in phases. Do not think of finance transformation as one large project. The point that you highlighted earlier as well, right? Always take it up in phases. Second is ensure you take team along, right? It should not become a top-down approach. You should ensure there are processes in place and take the team along in this transformation. If you try to push any tool top-down, what we've seen is that it typically does not get adoption eventually, which means you might spend probably 4 months, 5 months, whatever amount of period in implementing the tool. But if there's no usage, that's when you typically fail. So ensure these 2 points are taken care. Again, there is enough material out there to figure out the right kind of tech stack needed based on the industries that one is in based on the problem statement one has. But again, these insights have been quite helpful, Steve, and given your extensive experience of implementing, bunch of solutions across, geographies, across industries, it definitely adds a lot of value to upcoming, finance leaders. Thanks
Yeah.
for those insights. Guru, over to you. Do you want to bring up anything specific, or are we good?
Yeah, I think it was very interesting conversation. Couldn't interrupt at any point, and just I wish I could. I just wanted Steve to elaborate
Okay.
more on a couple
I
of
think we are
places.
good,
But
Steve.
probably I'll just bother him
It's
in
quite
person.
insightful. Guru, you want to add anything?
Can you hear me now? Is the audio better?
That's better. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just saying that the session was so insightful that I wanted to but couldn't interrupt Steve at a couple of places and ask him to elaborate further. So yeah, so that's pretty much it in regards to the event, folks. So we'll be coming up with the next set of the Copa talks a couple of weeks from now. We'll be having our next episode in the alternate weeks of November. We'll keep you posted in our social handles. But once again, thank you so much, Steve, for all the insights and also working with us in this wonderful session.
My pleasure, and I'm really excited for you guys and what you're bringing to the CFOs and finance leaders globally.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Steve.
Steve.
Nothing without your contribution.
Absolutely. And look forward to having more such sessions with you. You have seen it all in finance functions, so no better person than you to collaborate with. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Yeah. See you.
Thank you. Bye.